Okay, so when you think about adventure, what first comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's probably, conquering some massive peak, maybe trekking through a remote jungle.
Right, those classic images.
Exactly. But what if that picture is, well, changing? And what if that change is actually really important for our mental health?
That's precisely what we're digging into today.
Mm.
We've got this really interesting new paper. It's called Adventure and Mental Health, an ecological perspective.
Yeah.
And it's definitely stirring the pot a bit.
Okay.
And we're also looking at a study about using outdoor adventure, basically getting kids more engaged with science and physical activity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and even, believe it or not, an editorial that touches on innovation and entrepreneurship. There are some surprising links there.
Right. So our mission today really is to unpack this evolving idea of adventure. We want to show you it's potentially much more than just extreme thrills, way out there somewhere. And understanding this new view might actually unlock some real benefits for how you feel day to day. Okay, so let's start with that old way of thinking. What exactly is this pepper challenging?
Well, traditionally, if you look back at the research, adventure was very strongly tied to risk. Physical challenges, danger even, and usually in these really remote, wild, natural places.
Okay, so the classic explorer narrative, battling the elements, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Facing down danger in the wilderness. That's definitely been the dominant picture for a long time.
Right.
But this ecological perspective that the paper proposes, it takes a totally different angle. It sees adventure more as this dynamic interplay, a back and forth between the person, the activity, and the environment they're in.
Okay, so less about just the risky act itself.
Yes, it's not just about, ticking off a list of daring feats. It's about that whole interaction, the person, place, and activity, and what comes out of that mix.
Oh,
so
sure.
instead of just the thrill, you think about how different settings allow different kinds of experiences and growth for you.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because this new view says adventure isn't purely physical, is it? There are other dimensions.
Absolutely. The ecological view highlights that adventure is multi-layered. You've got the social side. Think about the bonds you build with teammates on a tough hike.
Yeah.
Then there's the psychological aspect, that feeling of accomplishment, pushing past a mental barrier. And sure, there's the physical, but for some people, there's even a spiritual element, that sense of connection to something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So this broader view shows us adventure isn't just one thing. It's complex.
And it seems like the who is changing too, right? It's not just that stereotypical young male adrenaline junkie anymore.
That's a really key point. Research shows that all sorts of people are seeking adventure now. More women, older adults, people from very different backgrounds. And often their motivations are much broader than just, getting an adrenaline fix.
Which totally makes sense if you broaden the definition of adventure itself. The paper also critiques that heavy focus on risk. What's the problem with only seeing it through that lens?
Well, the main issue is that when you focus only on risk, you often miss out on the richness of the actual lived experience. Things like personal growth, that feeling of being completely immersed flow, or the community aspect, those often get sidelined.
Right.
And the argument is that these other aspects are potentially huge for our mental well-being. There's research suggesting these really profound, sometimes transformative experiences, that deep immersion, feeling connected to others. Those are powerful ways adventure can benefit us.
Okay, so we're moving beyond just the daredevil image. Let's talk about the where. Traditionally, adventure meant being way out in nature, right? Far from civilization.
That's the classic picture, yeah. Remote, wild places, getting away from the everyday.
But this ecological perspective suggests we need to think, much more broadly about the adventure environment.
Exactly. It argues adventure can pop up in all sorts of places. Sure, remote wilderness, but also right in our cities. Even indoor environments could potentially offer adventure. Think about urban parkour.
Urban parkour.
Right.
So navigating a city landscape becomes an adventure.
Precisely. It really challenges that idea that you need a pristine natural setting. The crucial thing isn't just the environment itself, forest or city, but how you interact with it, how you experience that place.
Okay.
So it's not just the setting, but what that setting affords you, what possibilities it opens up for you to act and feel.
That makes a lot of sense. It really shifts the focus onto the individual. So it's less about the specific activity or location and more about your mindset, how you approach it.
That's a core idea.
Yeah.
Adventure becomes much more about your state of mind, how you engage with your surroundings. And that's a big shift, because it means what feels adventurous to you might not for someone else, and that's okay.
And I guess the reasons people seek these experiences out are probably just as varied then.
Oh, definitely. People are looking for personal development, maybe escapism from the daily grind, simple social connection, learning new skills, all sorts of things.
And the potential benefits seem quite significant too. The paper lists quite a few positive outcomes.
It does. Engaging in adventure in this wider sense can lead to, genuine personal transformation sometimes. a deeper connection with nature, more mindfulness, finding that flow state.
Right, that feeling of being totally absorbed.
Exactly. And improve well-being overall, gaining new perspectives on things. It's quite a list.
Okay, let's really get into this ecological perspective then. It seems central to this whole new understanding. How does it actually work? What are the mechanics?
So at its core, this perspective sees the individual, the activity, and the environment as completely interconnected and constantly influencing each other. Think of it like a mini ecosystem where everything interacts and shapes everything else. It draws heavily from ecological psychology.
And you mentioned some key concepts within that, like affordances. That sounds important.
Yes, exactly. There are three key ideas here: affordances, form of life, and effectivities. Affordances are basically the opportunities for action that an environment offers to a particular individual. So think about a rock face. To a skilled climber, it affords climbing. To someone else, it might just afford looking at, or maybe leaning against. It depends on the person perceiving it as much as the object itself.
Got it. So it's what the environment allows you to do based on who you are.
Precisely. Then there's form of life. This refers to the typical ways a species or even a culture interacts with its environment, our shared patterns of behavior, social norms, things like that.
Okay.
And finally, effectivities. These are your personal skills, your capabilities, your powers that allow you to actually perceive and act on the affordances the environment offers. So your climbing skills are your effectivities for the rock face affordance.
Right. Okay, I think I'm seeing how these fit together now. So how does adventure specifically relate to these concepts?
Well, the ecological view proposes that adventure provides these really rich contexts for us to explore and realize a wider range of affordances. It lets us discover and use effectivity skills and capabilities that maybe lie dormant in our everyday, more predictable lives. Adventure activities often involve these really fundamental human ways of engaging with the world: moving, perceiving, problem solving, connecting. They help us attune to and act on possibilities we might otherwise ignore. The key is actively seeking and engaging with those possibilities.
That's a really interesting angle. It almost implies that modern life, maybe with its focus on safety and routine, might actually be limiting our interaction with these affordances.
That's definitely a concern raised by this perspective. Our contemporary lifestyles, often prioritizing comfort and security, might unintentionally narrow the range of affordances we typically engage with. We might not push ourselves to discover what we can do.
So adventure becomes a way to kind of push back, to reconnect with a fuller range of possibilities for action and experience.
Exactly. In these adventurous settings, again, could be nature, could be urban, we encounter diverse affordances. Opportunities for, say, deeper connection with nature, strong social bonding, practicing mindfulness, getting into flow, developing a sense of personal agency and competence.
And what about people who are totally new to this? How do they even start recognizing these affordances? It might seem daunting.
That's a great question, and it's where adventure providers or educators come in. They can design experiences that explicitly help people, especially novices, learn to perceive and interact with these affordances. They help people realize effectivities they didn't know they possessed.
Oh, okay.
More experienced adventurers often develop this skill more intuitively over time, becoming better attuned to reading the environment and their own capabilities within it.
This ecological perspective really frames adventure as something quite vital, doesn't it? Especially now. It's not just a hobby. It's potentially a way to recalibrate our relationship with the world around us and unlock our own potential.
Precisely. And that recalibration, that unlocking, seems to have significant positive impacts on mental health and well-being.
This makes me think about practical applications. That study you mentioned earlier about adventure and education sounds like a perfect fit for this way of thinking.
Absolutely. It looked at using a multi-day outdoor adventure program to get high schoolers more engaged in science and physical activity. And the core finding was really about how experiential learning in these engaging, affordance-rich environments can boost motivation and understanding.
And what did they find specifically? Did it work? Were the kids more into science class?
The results were pretty clear, actually. Students reported significantly higher levels of engagement, intrinsic motivation, wanting to do it for its own sake, enjoyment, feeling self-determined, and, perhaps unsurprisingly, higher physical activity levels during the 5-day outdoor adventure science course compared to their usual school classes.
Wow.
And this wasn't just during the program. It held up when they reflected on it afterward, too.
That's really powerful. It suggests that learning through doing in an adventurous context can make a real difference.
It really does. The study strongly suggests that these integrated outdoor adventure programs could be a valuable tool for tackling issues like, youth inactivity and potentially improving performance and interest in subjects like science.
Did the study offer any tips on how to make these programs work best?
Yes, they highlighted a few key things. Supporting positive group dynamics was important, giving students meaningful choices about their learning, allowing enough time for them to actually develop the necessary outdoor skills and grasp the science concepts, and crucially, designing activities that foster opportunities for that flow state.
Ah, so creating conditions where they feel competent, autonomous, connected.
Exactly. Tapping into those basic psychological needs that seem to be met so well through adventurous activities, it helps ignite that inner drive.
Okay, now let's loop back to that editorial you mentioned on innovation and entrepreneurship. How does that connect with redefining adventure? Seems like a bit of a leap, maybe.
It might seem like it at first glance, but the editorial discusses the importance of embracing new experiences, taking on challenges, stepping into the unknown, all core elements of innovation, and starting new ventures, especially, in our rapidly changing digital world.
Ah, I see. So the mindset required for adventure, stepping outside your comfort zone, dealing with uncertainty, has parallels with the mindset needed for innovation.
That's the connection they draw.
Mm.
Both involve venturing into unfamiliar territory, disrupting routines, pushing boundaries, that willingness to explore new affordances, you might say, to overcome obstacles and learn from the process. It's a common thread.
Mm.
Whether you're navigating a tricky trail or navigating the launch of a new product, there's a shared element of exploration and adaptation. Recognizing and acting on opportunities, those affordances, again applies just as much metaphorically in business as it does physically in the outdoors.
That's a fascinating parallel. I hadn't quite thought of it that way. So maybe cultivating a more adventurous approach generally in life could actually fuel your ability to be more innovative or entrepreneurial.
That's the underlying implication. It's about fostering a mindset of exploration, resilience, and a readiness to engage with novel and challenging situations, whatever field you're in.
Okay, so wrapping this all up then, it really sounds like our whole concept of adventure is undergoing a pretty significant transformation. It's moving away from just being about, extreme sports in remote places.
Precisely. I think the biggest takeaway is this shift from a risk-centric, location-specific view to a much broader ecological understanding. It emphasizes that dynamic interaction between you, the activity, and the environment. And this view really highlights how adventure, in its many forms, can be a powerful pathway to unlocking human potential and boosting mental health across diverse settings.
Yeah, and it's crucial to remember, like you said, it's not confined to those extreme activities. Adventure can be found potentially in many different experiences and environments. It really depends on your own mindset and how you engage with the possibilities, the affordances around you.
Exactly right. It's about that unique interplay between your capabilities and what the world offers you.
So maybe here's a final thought for everyone listening. How could you redefine adventure in your own life? What untapped affordances, maybe physical, maybe social, maybe even intellectual, are sitting right there, waiting to be explored? Engaging with them might just enhance your well-being and perhaps spark some completely new insights or directions. Your next adventure might be much closer than you realize.